SOLIDWORKS 2014 introduces many powerful new features and time-saving shortcuts that are sure to delight every user. First, rotations are now supported in exploded views. Adding these rotations make explode animations much more realistic. Simply choose the components to explode and you'll notice that there are now rotation rings along with the linear manipulator triad. There's also an option to rotate each component about its own origin as opposed to rotating them as a group. Drag and drop the manipulator to define the linear explode, and then drag the ring to define its rotation. It's that simple. To define the rotation of the cylinder, we can now drag the manipulator without having to hold the Alt key to define the rotation axis, and then drag the cylinder out of position. One of the best ways to communicate assembly steps is to animate the explode or collapse, and with the new rotational explode steps, this communication gets even clearer. Identifying and changing configurations of components in an assembly is now much easier as they are now accessible right from the context toolbar. They're even accessible when selecting subassemblies. Changing configurations can now be done directly without having to access the Component Properties dialog. These configurations can be accessed from the graphics area or from the Feature Manager, and now assemblies can be made flexible directly from the context toolbar as well without having to access the dialog. The way that flexible subassemblies solve has been reworked so that assemblies, such as this, that contain multiple instances of the same flexible subassembly will now behave in a more predictable manner. Enhancements were also made in regard to mirroring components. SOLIDWORKS 2014 now supports many more mate types when mirroring parts and subassemblies. Mates such as cam, hinge, linear coupler, path, symmetric, universal joint, and width mates are now supported. These mates are added to the mirrored subassembly or recreated in the main assembly if the mirror component is dissolved, thus saving time having to reassemble components. In SOLIDWORKS 2013, when mirroring components, the opposite hand version was positioned along the center of mass. Now there's an additional option to choose the bounding box for the mirror position. Let's take a look at this scissors assembly. Currently it's symmetric, but if I unsuppress an extra component, the subassembly becomes unbalanced, and you can see this when I display the center of mass. Notice that the subassembly was mirrored as specified by the center of mass, and you can see that the centers of mass line up correctly. But this isn't what I want. I really want them to be mirrored about the center of the scissors assembly, not the center of mass. With the new bounding box option in the Mirror Components tool, I can now account for this and get the results I desire. When working with large assemblies, it may be desirable to remove small components. In earlier versions, we could use the Advanced Selection tool to select by volume or mass, but this tool was not really easy to use, much less find. Now in SOLIDWORKS 2014, a new Select by Size tool is available and works as easy as dragging a slider to select components as a percentage of the assembly size. Once selected, I can act on them by hiding them or suppressing them just like any other selection. Many users express concern that when they check the option Scroll Selected Item into View, that the Feature Manager never remembered where it was. With SOLIDWORKS 2014, when you select an item in the graphics area, then pick an empty space of the graphics area, you are brought back to the previous location in the Feature Manager. This behaves this way no matter where your Feature Manager starts from. Assembly Expert has been enhanced as well. Rebuild time is now reported in seconds as opposed to milliseconds, and we now list the number of hidden components, virtual components, envelope components, and the number of flexible subassembly mates. This can be important when troubleshooting assembly performance issues. Finally, the View Mates tool has been enhanced to now include features as well as components. Now I can see any mates that may be referencing a plane, axis, origin, or any reference geometry. This also works for sketches and curves, which makes it easy to see how the assembly is constructed. But it doesn't stop there. Let me hide this bushing to get access to the hole in the subframe, and you can see that I can view mates on this feature. In fact, I can view mates on any face or surface as well. This is very beneficial, especially when making changes to components of an assembly. You'll now be able to see which other components will be affected.